Welcome to Guilted Into It. She hates every time I do the opening.
It was too weird. That was too sensual.
Why is it weird? It was sensual.
No, it was just felt too like, I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know. Well, then you need to start doing it.
No, I think it's good when you do it. Because you never do it the same twice.
Well, that's true. I haven't found the right niche yet. I guess.
You certainly haven't.
I haven't found that yet. So I just got yelled at. She's like, don't be on your phone. The only reason I go on the phone is so that I can see the comments, because I can't see the comments on the...
No one's commenting.
They will be. I'm just making sure.
But you're at the ready. You know what I mean? You're like out here with the comments.
You have to be ready. Anyway, so before we get going...
Didn't you miss me?
Not a bit, honestly. Yes. No, we had a good show last week that you were not at. Yeah. But...
it looked good. I liked the trivia. I think we should incorporate a trivia.
We might have to do that.
You know?
We might. We could do that on another show because we have a fantastic show tonight.
Yes, we do.
We have a great show. I'm very excited. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking right now. We're going to do a quick little talking about, you know, I had brunch this weekend. That was my big weekend.
Big outing.
My big outing, the boozy brunch, the bottomless mimosa brunch.
Right.
And it was fantastic.
That's good.
It was fantastic.
Okay, that's good.
And you?
What I did?
Well, I don't know. Did you do anything?
I am always doing something.
I know.
I was in the city a lot. I was in the city a lot this weekend. It's a city slicker.
Oh, look at
as
you.
they say.
City slicker.
You know, I don't know. I never know where to go, like, in the city. Because, well, I know where to go, but I just feel like I never remember the restaurants that I go. I'll eat somewhere good, but that I will never remember the name of it.
Yeah, that happens to me. I get lost in the city every single time I go there.
That being said, I did go to a restaurant in the city that I've been to before because I remembered it from the last time that I was there.
So everything you just said was untrue.
In a sense, yes. No, we went to the Blue Dog. Remember, we went there.
Yes,
Good.
yes.
Small place. It was good. Shout out to Boris, our waiter. Got a free dessert from Boris.
Really?
Yeah. Don't know why.
Just
gave it to. Yep. It's good.
Because you're cute.
Yeah, I think it is that.
It's definitely.
Yeah, and then Boris gave a recommendation of somewhere to go, like a different bar to go after. Great recommendation. So,
all right.
If anyone's looking for some city help, go to Boris at the Blue Dog. He'll hook you up with everything you need. You know what made me mad, actually?
What made you mad?
So I went to see Chicago on Broadway, and I don't like when people embarrass me for no good reason. And the usher at Chicago embarrassed me. I'll still think about it like at least once a day since it happened.
Okay, I have to hear what happened so I can see.
He was standing. He's the guy who gives you the playbill, whatever, shows you to your seat. So he was standing with his hands behind his back, like with the playbills, like he was guarding them. So I was like, oh, what? Could I get one of those, whatever? And he's like, what do you got? And I'm like, what? And he's like, what do you got? And like, your tickets? Can I see your tickets? Like, he was looking at me like I was dumb. And I had to pull my ticket out, and guess where my seat was? He goes, oh, right here, and turned right next to me, and then handed me a playbill. Like, he made me jump through all these hoops, and I was embarrassed.
That's not really embarrassing.
It was embarrassing.
He looked more like the jerk than
he was kind of mean.
He looked like the jerk. Yeah. So, all right. So I want to get started. I have been chomping at the bit.
Okay.
All day. I've been very busy. We have. Right?
Yeah, you're a little behind me, so I feel like I can't look at you.
No,
I'm looking at you through
You're fine. You're fine. So, folks, I've been talking about this all week. All right? I've been talking about this show all week, and I've been posting and posting and posting and posting. We have, our guest tonight is comedian, actor, filmmaker, author, talk show host. I mean, he's a Renaissance man, and we're going to show you a clip from his latest film, Joke Man. Our guest tonight is Jackie the Joke Man Martling. And here's a clip from his film, Joke Man.
Guy says to his wife, are you faking it last night? She said, no, I was really asleep.
I always say Jackie made the biggest blunder in show business history. He decided to enter it.
There's very few people like him.
To watch Jackie walk up to the microphone, it's like watching Babe Ruth leave the on-deck circle.
What he does is not credited nearly enough for what it really is.
And please welcome Jackie the Joke Man Martling. Yeah. We never get the applause.
know,
He
it's
never
not
gives
a
us the
rave round of applause.
sound effect. I love the applause.
We don't need
Hello.
just applause from you ladies is fine. And from my generation over there, fine. Thank you. Here's what I brought you.
Oh.
Now, is that really you on the cover there?
Of course
No,
it is.
of course
Of
not.
course it is. Of course it is.
It's not me yesterday.
Too
It's me
bad.
10 years ago, but it is me.
That is a
my
white
total
ass.
restraint. Total restraint. No, you're supposed to say it's a very tan body, not a white
Oh,
ass.
sorry.
And I did not bring one for your lovely young daughter.
Wow. That's
Okay,
too. I'll have to read that
we
one.
share books. We share books.
You can Xerox that.
So how are you?
I'm great. And I actually have something to plug, which I didn't even realize when I booked this with you. We did a screening of the documentary that we just played a clip of at the Long Island Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame, which still annoys me how long that name is. They got it. But we did a sold-out screening, and it was so encouraging because the movie's like 75 minutes. But then we did a Q&A, and the Q&A was even longer. Like they sat
Really?
there for an hour and 20 minutes. And, I've been around a long time, so everybody knows everything there is to know about me. And I was on the Stern Show, but I left that 22 years ago. But people still have questions, and they're still interested. They'd still be there if we,
That's great.
which was encouraging because that was the first public. We did a Family and Friends in Manhattan, and we did a Family and Friends at Belmore.
I
It
was
was
at that
so
one.
good. It was so good. But that's your family and friends. It's so
Yeah,
good,
right.
But this was a few strangers, and it went so well. So now I'm really looking forward to doing it everywhere because it took us a long time to get it done. And then we had it up on iTunes, and it went to number 4 in documentaries. And next thing you know, the company went bankrupt, and it got yanked off of there. And yeah, show business, the business end of it is But now we have the rights back, and we can do it everywhere. And now we just booked, as of, I think, 3 days ago, we booked a screening at the Bolton Center.
That's April
in
5th.
Bayshore on April 5th. Mark your calendars, April 5th. And, we're going to do a screening and then a Q&A and hang out. And,
That's
people say, well, you hang out and talk. I've never done a show where I didn't hang out and talk to people and sign. I enjoy that more than telling the jokes, just hanging around, fooling around. So,
And it's funny you say that people know everything about me, but I read your book. That you were
be
kind
careful,
enough-
I'll quiz you.
I
I'll quiz
did.
you to find out if you're lying.
I did. I read it.
I have so many friends that, I loved your book. I loved your book. Then all of a sudden I'm telling them a story and they're like, wow, I didn't know that. I'm like, you didn't read the book.
I did read the book.
I trust you. You
And-
are that school teacher honesty thing.
Because I had no idea a gymnast, a musician.
But how would anybody, when you meet people when you're 50, 60 years old, 40 years old, nobody knows what you did when you were a kid, But if you're a stamp collector, you couldn't show that. But the great thing about that stupid gymnastics is it is so ridiculous that I have tape of it. That's what it's not crazy that I'm doing flips on the floor or anything like that. If you're old enough, I don't even know you guys aren't as old as me. In the old days, and I actually had one of these, it was a Brownie movie camera, and you actually took the 3-minute film and put it in and threaded it and wound it up, and you shot until it ran down. And my good friend Walter Campagna, who lives very close to here, a couple years younger than me, his father, we came from a very small town. His father was the local umpire in Little League, and he was just one of those guys that had that camera. There weren't 1,000 of them. It was like two in a city. Long Island was a little hamlet. I mean, I had one, but I was a little kid. But his father had one, and he would take video of. It wasn't even video; it was film of like Little League games and stuff. So Walter, we had a big gymnastic meet at the high school, and Walter's in it. So Mr. Compagna came and he shot Walter, but he also shot my whole gymnastic routine. And you got to understand those little film cartridges, they weren't film reels, they were only 3 minutes, which means he blew a whole roll on me, you know. And then years, you know, decades later, Walter says, "So, you know, I have a film of your gymnastics." I said, "You got to be kidding!" And then he sent me a VHS of it, and I'm like, "Whoa!" And then we got put it on digital.
Yeah.
And I sent it to everybody. And it freaks everybody out. But what are the odds of having that? And not only that, that was probably the best I ever did that stupid routine. You know, the odds of, you know, come and see me at the play on such and that's the night that the chandelier falls on your head, you know. And it just had me where I hit a lot of the moves, and it's just so precious to have that. It just tickles me. And then to have a documentary to put it in is so stupid because it freaks people out. You know, people say, you know, it's one thing that you're writing emails to Willie Nelson, but gymnastics, you know, because they don't see that. They can see me hanging with Willie Nelson and getting stoned, but they can't see me doing a backflip.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, you lived quite a life. You know, you
well,
really.
If you cram it all into a book, everybody's had quite a life. You know, after X amount of years. I mean, I wrote that book when. How long has it been out? You know, I was 68 when I wrote it, I think. So I've had a whole nother book since then. You know.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of stuff happened. You know, a lot of great stuff.
You wrote this book, your wacky jokes. Right?
After this came out, it sold so well that they wanted me to do a follow-up joke book. So I said, okay, and I just put that together, and the picture was actually inside here. And the guy liked the picture so much, he said, I got to put that in the cover. I said, I don't care. I'm not, you know, I think it's funny.
It is
and it's a real picture, and I love it when people don't think it's a real picture because that's flattering, right? You know.
I guess so. But so.
Don't read that. Don't let your daughter see you reading that because it's filthy jokes.
Good.
Very, very filthy jokes. Don't let Otto read it.
She's gonna read it right now.
I'm gonna see something in here.
So I did do a little bit of my homework.
Oh God.
See? What did I tell you,
Filth.
Bridget?
The first joke.
She can't wait till
I'm
the
too
show's over
classy
so
for
she can
that.
read more, right?
Absolutely, I'll have that done cover to cover, but before I go to bed tonight.
You want me to tell you my joke, my new joke?
I do.
A guy buys a farm, so he's got to get a cow. So he goes to a cow sale, and he says, the guy selling the cow, I think I want to buy that cow. But I got to know it's still vital. And the cow seller says, well, whatever you got to do. So the guy reaches under and pulls on one of the cow's nipples. And the cow cuts a huge fart. The guy pulls on another nipple, and the cow cuts an even louder fart. And he turns to the guy selling the cow and says, this cow is from Minnesota, isn't it? And the guy selling the cow says, yeah, how could you tell? He says, my wife is from Minnesota. There's nothing like a joke. There's nothing like a joke.
There is nothing like a joke.
You can work all day doing a stand-up routine for 5 minutes and you won't get that laugh because it's so stupid.
Yeah.
So harmless.
And you know every joke, as legend would have it.
You don't know them all, but I know a lot of them and I can figure them out. There's so many gazillions, but I do know more than anybody else. And finally, people are acknowledging that, right down the line,
And I acknowledge it. That's not to say I didn't prepare a joke to try to stump you with. But, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
You're running the show.
Am I? I don't know if I am.
Sexy shoes.
You like these shoes?
You wear those for everybody or am I special?
You're special.
See that?
See that? Just for you. So.
Yeah, you really dolled yourself up for me.
You pulled out all the stops with the Skechers there. That's, Jackie, please.
These are, my old friend Bobby Slayton does the commercials. If you ever heard the guy on the radio go, yeah, you got to get Skechers. That voice, that's Bobby Slayton. But these are the step into them. It's the greatest thing in the world. You really do, sounds like horse crap when they say that. I haven't been over in months. Just stick your foot in and it's beautiful. I was going to wear my nice blue suede shoes. I said, no, I'm not going to bend over and tie my shoes. It's just a couple of hot women.
Just slip them on. It's much easier.
That's right. The girls or the shoes?
I Depends.
Ma's with me.
Depends.
I don't know if I got them, but I got Mom.
No, you got Mom.
What's your first name? Judy. That's
Judy.
Judy.
Judy. Yes, I know we have a lot of people watching. Some people are saying. Hold on.
Wow.
Oh, he keeps saying ask you about Ringo and Paul, which I read in the book, so I already know the Ringo and Paul story. But
There's, he's probably asked that the last time I don't know when the last time I did a podcast, but the guy said, how many Beatles have you met? You know who asked me that? Mark Simone asked me that on Friday. And I met Ringo and I met Paul. Ringo was on the Stern Show, and it was funny because I never was impressed. You know, we were having fun, so who cares? And Howard was always like, oh, Jackie's never impressed with anything I do. And all of a sudden, Ringo's sitting there. He says, you know, Ringo, Jackie's never impressed by anything, but now, you know, he's a kid from the 60s, and now I got a Beatle sitting here. Let me ask him. Yeah, say hello to Jackie. And he says, hello, Jackie. He said, you impressed, Jackie? I said, all right, Howard, I'll give it to you. I'm impressed now. And then we embarrassed. You don't embarrass a Beatle because he could kill us, but we did the worst thing. I'm sure this was in the book. When Ringo did his first worldwide tour, he was the first Beatle to really do a big tour, and it was called the All-Star Tour, STARR. And he had Leslie West and Joe Wall. He had the cream of the cream. You know, who wouldn't want to go out with the Beatles? And they traveled by plane and everything. And it was great because Leslie said they used to play my Dirty Joke CDs on the plane, which just thrilled me, right?
Gee.
But when he was going to do this, it was worldwide news. So they had a press conference in Manhattan that went out to literally, and this is in 1991 maybe, but it went out to 1 billion people because it was worldwide. Everybody in the world was tuned live to this. And we used to send, not we, I always say we, Howard used to send out Stuttering John, one of the guys from the show, to ask obnoxious questions. And sometimes you get thrown out of the press conferences, and sometimes you get, but the stories, the questions we gave him were always so funny and so annoying. And he got very famous from it because it was, you know, it's crazy. People almost were looking for him. And me and Fred Norris, the other writer, and we came up with stuff. But I gave him a question to ask Ringo. Now, the amount of press, you can imagine the amount of press was there from all over the world. So the odds of John getting out a question were minuscule. And John's there and Ringo's taking questions. And they chose John. And we were listening live on the radio. And me and Fred both, because, you know, we're Beatle fans. I mean, they were our gods. You know, we were guitar players from high school. And we're like, oh. And John, Stuttering John, stutters. And it was the oldest insult kids music joke that you could make in the world. And they said, Mr. Melendez from K-Rock Radio. And he goes, Ringo, what'd you do with the money? And he said, what money? He said, the money your mom gave you for singing lessons. Oh, God. And it was like, we're like, ah! Oh, 1 billion people heard that. It didn't throw him. He said, oh, I spent the money on fish and chips.
Oh, my God.
Oh, but it was just it was just classic. I don't know if it's in that book. It's in Howard's book. You know, he said, I love Jackie. If he can embarrass 1 billion people with a Beatle, you know.
I used to listen to the show all the time from when I was young because my mom was that good of a parent to let me listen to the Howard Stern show.
The state should come get you.
But, and I don't really remember what year it was. You started there in '83?
I was there once a week when I always say when he was on in the afternoons at WNBC once a week, and then he got fired, got rehired, and was back to 1 day a week. And then in February of '86, went to mornings.
Okay.
I started twice a week, and then 3, 4, 5, because by that time I was passing him notes on a regular basis, and he was a lot funnier when I was sitting there. So next thing you knew, I was on 5 days a week. And the show went to Pluto. Just absolutely, like, you know, hang on to your hats. You know, it was like a frog on a frying pan, turn up the heat. You didn't even know. We're just like, you know, we're working so hard and just having so much fun and making more and more money and more money. And, you know, it was delightful. It was so hard. The hours were so hard because you never, ever got, you know, getting up at 4:30 in the morning until we went to mornings on that stupid show. I think I had gotten up at 4:30 in the morning twice in my entire life.
Yeah, being a
You know,
comedian,
once
you
to
work
drive
nights.
home from Saratoga, New York, and once to go fishing with I mean, it was just 2 times. I could actually remember when they were. And all of a sudden, like, holy crap. And, you know, Dave Herman, who had a sad ending, but Dave Herman was a morning man on WNEW radio, you know, the rock and roll station for the ages. And he was the morning man there for 25 years. And by the time we were at K-Rock, he followed us at 10 o'clock. And after a week or two of, you know, doing the morning show, like, I'm ready to strangle somebody. And Dave was coming on, and I said, Herman, you did this for 25 years at NEW. When do you get used to these hours? And I can still see him. He smiled, and he said, you never get used to it. I'm like, you couldn't lie? You couldn't lie and say, give it a month, you'll be fine. You know, to this day, when I'm lying there in the morning, I revel in the fact that I don't have to get out of bed. You know,
Yeah.
Once in a blue moon, I go do WBAB with Roger and JP, who are great, great guys. And they help me promote stuff, and I tell jokes almost too dirty for this show, like I do with Simone. And once in a while, I get up very early in the morning, do Q104 with Jim Kerr and Shelley Sunstein. And just doing it once every couple months is just enough to remind me
Oh, yeah.
the horror, you know,
Because I like what you wrote in the book about when they asked you to come in the first time. And you were like, there was no way, shape, or form did I think this was going to turn into anything.
You know what?
How do you keep...
I didn't give it enough credence to think, to even consider that there was, you know, it wasn't even like, wow, I wonder if this will, you know, this is a chance to go into Rockefeller Center and go on the radio, you know, boom. And then when I started doing it, yeah, why don't you bring in some of your friends, you know? And these stupid comedians, like, they're smart. I know I'm going on the radio at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in the tri-state area, and there are millions of, I don't know, hundreds of however many. There's a lot more people listening than when I'm on stage at Governor's Comedy Shop in Levittown. And I would ask guys, I'd say, hey, you want to come do the Howard Stern show with me? And they'd say, what's it pay? And I get I'm like, what's wrong with you? What's it pay? Do you have any idea? You know, to this day, I still have guys that come up to me and say, I can't believe you asked me to come on the Howard Stern show. And I said, no, back then.
Yeah, I bet. They're kicking themselves.
Because it was, you know, it was such an opportunity just to come on once, you know. And it was...
That's how people are going to feel about this show, you know. So.
Yeah. They are. They're
you're
going to be like...
You're going to ask me to be regular?
We'll see.
Could
we'll
happen.
see how you play, you know.
Do you remember the story? You know, the great story from the book is the first time I passed the note. And it was long before I was actually doing that, and it became a thing. But I was sitting there with a very, very funny guy named Al Rosenberg, who passed away a couple months ago. He's just a delightful guy, and he was so, so funny and so talented. And he used to come in, and he would be Lou Ferrigno, who I'm sure has passed away, but he was deaf. So he's talking to Howard. How you doing, Howard? And it, you know, it was wrong, but it was very funny. And in those days, we were on from 4 to 8. I always say we. The show was on from 4 to 8. But when the New York Knicks had a home game, the show stopped at 7 because the basketball game was going to start. So not only that, but it was so long ago that the Stern Show actually had Coca-Cola as a sponsor. I guess they hadn't tuned in yet. Okay. So at the end of the show, at 7 o'clock, every guy in the tri-state area is tuned to WNBC AM because they're tuning in to hear the Knick game. Even people had no idea who Howard Stern was. So the whole world is listening to us. And Howard had to do a liner, which was like a quick ad that you read. And he says, yeah, Robin, and Coca-Cola wants to make sure that everybody has lots of Coca-Cola and snacks for the game. And I heard snacks, and I wrote snacks, snatch, and underlined them, put it in front of Al, who moved so fast. He was, what did you say, Howard? And Howard caught on so quick. I said Coca-Cola and snack. No, you can't say that, Howard. That's dirty. You can't say snatch. I said snacks. People to this day tell me they drove off the road. They never heard anything like that in a million years. It was like the greatest intro to the whole writing jokes on the fly. Oh my God, it was just great.
Which that's just such an incredible talent to just be able to, in the moment.
But but if you hear it, I guess, it's like math or like anything. If you get it, you get it. Like my friend Burf and I used to talk about this because he'd say, it's so funny. People go so wild over Mickey Mantle, but he wouldn't go wild because Mickey just went to the ballpark and played baseball because that's what he does. Everybody else was so enamored of it, but he wasn't enamored of himself because that's what he does. Mm-hmm. So think of something funny. That's
what you do.
That's what you do.
It was like a frat house.
Yeah, it was so much funnier than a frat house.
So I asked when you start. I wanted to make sure when you started because I don't. Do you remember when we called the Howard Stern? You don't remember the year, do you?
Oh, yeah, it had to be 82, 83.
Oh,
so
okay.
this is the afternoon radio show?
Yeah, because he was making fun of Annie, and I got very indignant, and my mother's like, "Let's call him," and we got
He's
through.
making fun of the musical or making fun of the specific actress?
The character, Annie, yeah. And I was like, how could he say that? I guess he was just razzing on it or whatever. And she's like,
so
well,
you're defensive about the role that you're playing
when
in the
I
play.
was 12, yeah.
It's like Clark Gable defending Rhett Butler.
I know. It's so funny. But
So who called? You called or you called?
I called.
And you were 15, 12?
I was
10?
12, 13.
You were about
13, 14.
What are you talking about, you son of a bitch?
Yeah, he's like, who are you? And I went, I was Annie. You are not. Prove it to me.
Oh, did you start
Did you
singing?
sing? Yeah. No, he did. He hung up on me. Hung up on a
but that's
kid.
great. That's great.
But I did.
You called in and said, who wants to talk to Howard? This is Rosanne. I play Annie. All right. Hey, Howard, is somebody, I still remember Leslie West. Gary came in one day and said, hey, Howard, the guy on the phone says he's Leslie West from Mountain. So Howard said, put the idiot through. So he put in 2 minutes after Leslie started talking. I looked at Fred and I said, this is him. That's a Jew from Queens. That's Leslie Goldstein or Goldstock, whatever, Weinstein, Leslie Weinstein. So funny.
But you see, I think when I read your book and watched stuff about you and everything, I don't know. I just feel like you just went for it. Everything. Writing a letter to, sending jokes to Rodney Dangerfield. Like you just.
You know what? I wasn't going for anything. I was running from the concept of ever working.
Okay, fair enough.
Which is so crazy because I was never going to be one of those guys that commuted. And within a couple of years, not only was I commuting, I was commuting at 5 o'clock in the morning. I mean, regular commuters were making fun of me, But, and I never had a plan. It was just one foot in front of the other. And I always tell people the same stuff. If I connected my life backwards, connected dots backwards, it makes perfect sense. It's like if you went through a maze and then traced the steps backwards, you went right. But there was so many wrong turns and missteps. But you just did what you did. I bombed out as a musician, and I figured if I want to eat, it's not going to be this. And I didn't have anything but my jokes. I had a degree in mechanical engineering, but that's the last thing in my mind I would have ever done. And so I just started telling my jokes on stage, and it worked. I never looked back.
I love this story in your book about with your mother in the car.
That's
Because I'm thinking about putting myself in your mother's position.
My mother was.
I don't know if I would have had that good of a sense of humor.
She was such a character. She's probably why I'm funny and witty. My father was very smart and very funny too, but he was quiet. But my mother, I mean, I went and found the book that she used to show me when I was a little kid. And I don't know if I was 4 or if I was 8 or whatever. But looking back, I'm sure it was so inappropriate, like jokes with a book full of dirty little Willie poems and stuff like that. And she'd say different things. And I actually started making a joke book one time. I still have it right now, these jokes when I was a kid. And she wrote a dirty joke in the book. I mean, she was just fun. And they both drank way too much. And of course, they got along less good and less good as the years went on. And then I came out from Michigan State with money that we had saved up to buy an electric piano and bring up, everything's cheaper in New York. I was buying a Fender Rhodes electric piano. I hardly could play the piano, but we needed it in the band. And we're going to drive back, and I talked the drummer in my band, who passed away, Carlton Sesson, into driving me back to Michigan. And he had a tiny little Mustang. And he was 6'5". So when he sat in his Mustang, he had the seat all the way back up against the back seat. So there was no back seat on that side. And I got the Fender Rhodes piano, which, if you know what it is, it's
Big, yeah.
It's, you know, it's big. It's the size of a table. And my mother just announced, I'm riding back to Michigan State with you guys. I'm like, all right, you know, that's how she played. You know, she's one of the gang. And of course, I got a case of beer, maybe 2 cases of beer. And I said, all right, Mom, I'm just going to get you a bottle of rye and put you in the back seat. And so she's fine with that. And we had all the beer on ice. And I got a lemonade pitcher with a big opening on the top, figuring that if I have to pee, I will pee into the lemonade pitcher, because in these days, Route 80 was not open. So it was the Pennsylvania Turnpike, or else you took Route 80, but every once in a while it'd be miles and miles and miles of little towns. And then the next part of Route 80, I remember going, each time I went back and forth to Michigan State, a little bit more of Route 80 was done. And, you know, now you could drive there, you know, blindfolded. But it was so interesting. I figured, if, you know, once you start to pee, you're going to have to stop every 5 minutes. I said, no, we're not going to deal with that. So we've got the Fender Rhodes piano. It's a Fender Mustang. I mean, it's a Ford Mustang. So the little trunk. So the trunk is like this, and the back of the piano is, half the piano is sticking out of the Mustang. And Carl's driving, and I'm drinking. We're both drinking, but I'm drinking a lot. And I'm pounding down the beers, and we're going down Route 80 or Pennsylvania Turnpike, whatever it was. And I said, well, it's time to pee. And I got up and knelt on the seat, and I had the pitcher. And my mother's right there, and hey, Ma, you know, how you doing? And she's got her bottle of rye, and she's boozing it up and having the time of her lifetime. And I filled the, you know, however, it was a big pitcher, so however much went in it. And without a brain in my head, I opened the window, figured I was just going to put the pitcher out and turn it over and empty it. And not thinking aerodynamically, I just turned the pitcher, and the entire contents of the pitcher came back in, and it's just same as I did that to my mother. And she screamed, and I turned around, and she's dripping wet. And Carl looked in the rearview mirror and saw her face all dripping wet, and he went into hysterics. And thank God there was nobody else on the highway, because this little Mustang was going, and the back with the, you know, it was like a tail. Oh my God. And people say, what happened after that? I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm sure we had to wait till the next rest area, or I have no recollection what happened next. But, you know, we just kept going. You know, we didn't stop and buy new clothes. You know, it was just.
And she laughed. You
And
said
she
she laughed.
her ass off. Yeah, she laughed her ass off. Obviously it wasn't on purpose, and it was
Oh, yeah.
it was just sheer stupidity. But having a lemonade pitcher and beer and rye, and
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, you didn't smoke pot then?" Who needed to smoke pot yet? I didn't smoke pot till I was a sophomore in college. I was having too much fun, So,
So, well,
I know that story's in the book, but I haven't actually told that story in so long because people always tell the story for me, and I get so mad. I'm like, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. They don't get the subtleties of it.
Right.
It was, oh God, and when crazy things happen in your life, they get. I mean, when I'm telling that story, I'm in that stupid car. I mean, I remember it so clearly, and I couldn't tell you what I had for breakfast, but I can remember.
Well, that's the thing. You remember so many things, so many details, so many little things, and I'm like, it's just incredible. All of the.
Yeah, and you know what? It's crazy because when I start telling stories, so many times I stop, and it looks like I'm making stuff up because stuff is coming back to you. And when I first started on the Stern Show, when we started mornings, we would come in, and we'd sit there for 10 or 15 minutes, either before the show or after the show. When we used to write, the first couple of years we'd sit there and write, and until it got to Howard couldn't stand to have bits, because then he'd have to shut up for 3 minutes while we played the bits, and he couldn't not talk. And people said, how's he talk for 4 hours? I said, the trick is not him talking for 4 hours. The trick is getting him to shut the fuck up after 4 hours. And excuse me, Judy. Well, I heard you cursing. So,
Yeah, she's got a mouth like a trailer.
But we'd sit there, and when I first hooked up with the show, you can't say that anymore. When I first joined the show, you can't say hook up anymore. I don't want people.
You can't say a lot of things anymore.
I'm having sex with Fred. So we'd sit there and tell stories, and Howard would tell a story, or Gary would tell a story, and then I would tell a story. And it would always trump, that's another bad word, but it would always supersede their stories. But I was never making it up. I had a little bit wilder life than them. And I swear, I'd tell these stories, and I could, if I didn't see it, I could sense their eyes rolling like, here he goes again, with another one of his stories. Here he goes, until after 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, however long, after a certain amount of time in knowing me, they started realizing that these were true stories.
True story.
And then Howard started calling on me to repeat them on the air. It was such a funny thing, because I would, you come in the morning, all pissed off, and, for whatever reason sometimes, I'd come in and sit down, and before we went on the air, and I'd start bitching about my wife. And then we'd come on the air. It'd be the first thing, oh, Robin, you should have heard Howard. You should have heard Jackie going off on Nancy. And I would never learn. A couple of weeks would go by, and then I'd do it again. So then you got smart, and you realized you bitched about things that you wanted them to talk about.
Right.
And that you get smarter.
That could be very dangerous, yes.
It was pretty interesting. And then the stories got, and then some of the stories got very, very infamous and really fun, So.
Well, it's been, I could just talk to him. I could talk to you all for another 2 hours. I really could.
Oh,
You're very
over.
interesting, and
Is she with you, Otto? Oh, she's with you. Okay.
So, but I did tell you I had a joke for Stump.
Now,
the joke
we're in
man.
time. Do you only have a certain amount of time, like 20 minutes?
We have a certain amount of time. We have to be off at 55. So we have time. We have time.
Okay.
We have time. But I want to stump the joke man.
I'll be polite. Right, Bridge?
If he
Yes.
knows this, because this.
You see, my hell, I'm a social leper. Because the definition of a gentleman is somebody who hasn't heard the story. Somebody starts telling a story at a party or at a gathering, you politely listen and smile and enjoy it, especially a joke, especially, I don't care how sexist it is, especially if it's a woman, you haven't heard the story. But I can't do that, because I can't have some girl come up and start telling us joke and let me be polite, and then the rest of her life go, he doesn't know so many jokes. I told him a joke he didn't know. So, all bets are off.
That's fine. That's fine. I hope you know it.
Okay.
All right. So I just give you the first line, and then you give me the punchline.
Well,
right? That's how that works?
however you want to play.
Well, that's what I thought.
As long as it's not oral sex.
No.
Okay.
No. All right. So here's the first line. What's the difference between ooh and ah?
3 inches.
Damn it.
What kind of filthy joke? This is your daughter?
Disgusting.
Jesus Christmas.
That
Yeah,
was a
you knew it.
softball.
That was a softball. I don't know. I don't think I could have stumped him anyway.
Would you just look it up?
No, I've been telling that joke for years.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Never heard you tell it once.
I haven't told
Not in front of
you.
you.
Why doesn't anyone want to tell me a dirty joke?
What's the difference between spit and swallow?
Oh God, I regret
What?
40 pounds of pressure on the back of her head. Now, who started it?
I did.
That's it.
I started it.
That's just silly. No, but that was a wonderful joke. In fact, that's probably one of the jokes that we used when after I'd been on the show a couple weeks. It was great. I went in the first day, and at the end of the first day that I was there, Howard said, "Man, you're a lot of fun. Come back next week." And it was me and Howard and Robin and Fred, same 4 people that were there the last day I was there. And after a couple of weeks, he said, "I really need a piece of business to do with you." And I said, "Well, a lot of times at my shows, I tell people to try and stump me with a joke," because there was a comedian at the time that used to play the guitar. And he said, "Yell out any group and I'll play a song by them." But of course the people yell, Beatles, Springsteen, whatever, and he'd play something funny and cute. So I'd say, "Give me a subject." People would give me a subject, and if it was too narrow a subject, I would open up the umbrella. If somebody said garlic bread, okay, Italian food, and I'd tell a joke. So, and Howard said, "All right, we'll do that, but we'll do 2-line jokes." I said, "Okay." But we're taking phone calls, and every phone call was so racist, so, anti-religious and filthy and crap. People didn't have a brain in their head, so we couldn't really do it. So what happened, we'd give Fred jokes, and he'd go in the other room and call in as Mrs. Flemstein. It's a whole other story. But it was an indistinguishable voice. You couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. And we would be as dirty as we dared get on AM radio and be able to get away with it. And I think that's one of the jokes we probably told.
Oh, really?
Because
Okay.
ooh, ah, and 3 inches, if you have to put that together in your head. A little kid would not understand.
Right.
I mean, she would, but anybody else would.
You got the joke, right?
I got
Okay,
it.
just wanted to
Nothing
make
gets
sure.
No,
behind
but you
me.
know what I mean? It's like, if there's no dirty words, it's not inherently insulting and demeaning, So that,
Yeah, you wouldn't get away with that on radio today. You wouldn't get away with a lot of what you guys did today.
God, I was reading,
But your comedy hasn't changed.
never did. Not
Even
since-
today, right?
Not from the, a little bit. I probably had more, probably more black jokes, but my black jokes were never really insulting, not horrible, but they use the kingfish type voice, and so you just, I don't need it, just a little bit here and there, and I took out the little people jokes, and but slowly, but they wasn't due to any pressures. It was just like not necessary. It was so funny. I never edit myself. And if I'm doing a show and it'd be like a black couple or a rabbi, I would look right at them when I'm doing the Jewish jokes or the black jokes, because it's all fun and they know what I'm doing. They know what they're there for. And I never, ever said, "Oh, I better not do this, better not do that." It's really funny. When I first started hosting Governors, when we created Governor's Comedy Shop, and people say, "Oh, Jackie, you better be careful. There's a lot of older people out there tonight." I'm saying, "You're out of your mind." The older couples, they love my jokes, my sex jokes. You get a couple in their 40s, they'll laugh their ass off at the marriage jokes and the sex jokes. The people you freak out is a 20-year-old guy sitting on a first date with a girl, and I tell a blowjob joke, and he's like, freaked out whether he should laugh, But I was doing a show in Boca Raton, and the front table, there were little people. I still think little people sounds more insulting than midget, but it's not my call. But there was a little people couple, and they were sitting right ringside. And they were so little. Their feet were like dangling. And I never edit, but I had a section of my act that had probably 4 little people jokes in a row, and they're not horrible, but they wouldn't be jokes if they hadn't been little people in the jokes. And I jumped over that hunk. And I remember thinking to myself, you never did that before. But I didn't want people to think that I saw this couple,
Right.
this little people couple, and went at them with all these jokes because they were there when they just happened to be in my act. And just the fact there was a couple, probably between the two of them, they could have kicked my ass too. But it was so funny. Oh, God.
Now, are you still doing stand-up?
Oh, yeah. I'm doing a show Saturday night at the Raz Room in the New Hope Inn in New Hope, Pennsylvania. It's a little room. But, some rooms you just love doing. It's only I think it's 120 people. But it's a small room, so the audience is right there. And I love that. And it's a great time.
Fun.
And you get a room, and even after all these years, it's such a pleasure to do a show in a hotel that you're staying at. So you can you can rest, and then I call it an elevator gig. Come down the elevator, do your show, and go back up in the elevator. That's like Las Vegas and places like that. It's just great, But and it's actually an 8:00 show. A lot of the shows is 7 o'clock. I remember when I first started doing shows at Governors, when they started them at 7 o'clock. I'm like, 7 o'clock, and then I'm realizing, the people that come to see my shows are in bed by 9, so they're glad to come out at 7.
It's true. Late shows, I never do any late shows because that's...
You're a kid.
too late.
I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but I probably got you by 20 years. You're a kid.
Well, I'm saying, but people who generally go to the later shows are more her age.
Yeah.
And I don't think my humor...
But when
know.
you're talking about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah.
I still have the ads from when I first started. It's fun stuff, and I just came across, and opening weekend, Governors, opening weekend, I wasn't even Jackie the Joke Man yet. I would say opening weekend, Jackie Martling and whoever. 2 shows, 8 o'clock and 12:30. And I had to look twice, like, what? What? I don't know how long that lasted. And then I got one for Governor's Comedy Shop, Jackie Martling and Carol Leifer. And Carol Leifer's the woman that Elaine from Seinfeld was based on. Mm-hmm. And this is back when Nelson and Eddie Murphy and Jim Myers were the identical triplets. It says Bob Nelson, Ed Murphy, Jim Myers. Like,
Ed Murphy.
I'd never seen him put it. It just was funny. But 12:30, like, holy Christ, that's so funny.
That's late, and I'm sure there were plenty of people there.
In way back, one of the craziest things, when I came home from college, we all drank so much and had so much fun. And we'd stay at the bars, until you got thrown out. And the local bar, it's the Homestead, but we called it Uvi's because it was owned by Uvi. And at 2:30 or 2:45, you'd line up a couple drinks because the bar's going to close, last call. So you want to have a couple drinks in front of you. So when he closed up, you had more to drink. And I remember I came home from college for either Christmas or for the summer, and it was like 2:45. And I said, come on, you guys, we better line up some drinks. And they said, no. I said, the bar's closed at 4 now. I said, you got to be kidding. What group of congressmen was sitting around saying, you know what? These guys drink till 3 a.m, but they still have a chance of getting home without killing themselves. Let's give them another hour. What kind of idiot decision? And then same thing. We'd be there till 4 in the morning. Now I drive through my hometown at 11 o'clock at night. The bars are almost empty or closed.
Yeah.
You know, and the
Nobody's
kids
out.
aren't having sex nowadays. I'm not going to look at you. But they're not having sex. They're not getting drunk. They're not going out.
Boring generation.
You know, they're
Boring
looking at their
generation.
stupid phones, letting somebody else do the sex for them.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't, you know, we all
just-
start to sound like our parents, you know.
Oh, that's, well,
This
listen.
goddamn generation, I don't know. What are you going to do?
What is your take on, you have questions? I've been just kind
you
of,
haven't
I'm
said a
sorry.
word.
You've been so quiet.
Every time I go to say something,
ahead.
I get yelled at over
No,
here.
go
I
ahead.
don't want to ask
By me?
anything. Yes,
You're lying.
I
Go
know.
ahead.
I'm getting railroaded on my own show.
Well, but I'm just curious, is,
You asked her to talk.
I
Let her
did.
talk.
I don't want to talk. What was your question?
my question was this. See, what is your take, because now, having been in comedy for so long, right, and you've seen the changes that it's gone through from when you started.
I spent 15 years out of the loop. Even though I was still a comic, when I went to do a show, if I went to Chicago or if I went to Denver, whatever, I would go to do a show, and if there was going to be another comic or two or a host from the radio station on the show, that wasn't like the early days when three guys piled into a car and you all worked together and all you MC and you're going to be, you know. When I first started, there wasn't MC, middle, head. It was like three guys and Martling going last should have loudest. It was that simple. And then for 15 years, I have no idea what happened. I probably didn't see my partner, Peter Bales, except very rarely all that time. Because when I did shows, I did them by, like if I headlined at Rascals in Jersey, I'd pack the place. If I did local shows, I could fill a place up on a dark night. So they loved having me at places like on a Thursday night or a Wednesday night, because that would normally be dark or be a small open mic night. We'd pack them in. But I never saw the other comedians or went to see them or watched. You know, it's funny, people say, who do you like of the new comedians? And to me, the new comedians is Chris Rock. You know what I mean? I'm so out of the loop. You know, a guy told me, oh, I heard this guy talking about you on his podcast. He's a big fan of the Stern Show, and he's a big fan of you. You should get a hold of him. And the guy's 50 years old, and he's been around for 25 or 30 years, but I never heard of him. And so I went on the website and said, you know, contact, and I wrote, hey, I heard you were talking about me. I'd love to do your podcast. And his girl called me up right, oh, well, Bert would love to have you in the thing. So I went to do this guy, Bert Kreischer. I never heard of him. He sells out stadiums, and I never heard of this guy. But he didn't do Zoom, but I said, I'll go to L.A., let's go have some fun. So I got in the plane, went to L.A., and sat with him for a couple of hours. And he was just a delight. But I'm just that out of the loop. And then it happened to me with another guy, Brendan Walsh. Do you know that name? And but this guy Bert was so great. He said, when I was 10 years old in Philadelphia, me and my brother would hide in the room and call you dirty joke line, so our parents couldn't hear us. You know, so like, you know, that's. But he's not a 20-year-old kid. He's a 50-year-old guy. He's been around,
Yeah.
but I didn't. You know,
So
it's a bus driver's holiday. I don't watch comedy. If they're funnier than me, I'm going to get pissed off, and if they're crummy, I'm like, how come I'm not the one on television? You know, you can't. You know.
I got you. We get 2 minutes left. Let's talk about Stand-Up Memories. That's your show with Peter Bales, right?
Stand-Up Memories, the guys from Titan Media asked me if I wanted to do a podcast, and I said, I went over and I assessed the place. I thought it was great. And I didn't want to just sit there and talk about myself, and I didn't know how I wanted to do it. And Peter Bales and me have been friends he dragged me into the comic strip in Manhattan in 1979. He used to come see my band in the 70s because he's from Locust Valley, which is next town over. And he was working at the comic strip. And his peers were Jerry Seinfeld and Paul Reiser and Carol Leifer and Larry Miller and Dennis Wolfberg. And he helped bring those people out to do our shows on Long Island. And we were good friends from the beginning. And we worked a lot in Fort Lauderdale at the Fort Lauderdale comic strip, and stories that we don't dare ever put down in print. And I called him and said, hey, you want to co-host the show it me, and he loved. And the first 25 shows we didn't have a guest. We just talked about whatever because we had a lot of water under the bridge. And then we started having guests, and it was and then we had a couple mothered daughters, and then we had guys with their wives, and it's been who we had the other day? We had Barbara Feldon, who was 99 on Get Smart.
Oh, God.
90 years old. She was so great. And now I got lined up the real Kramer, who's an old friend, but the real guy, the guy
who was based
Kramer's
on.
based on, which is he's just a hoot. And we're going strong. We're having fun. We call them 4 seasons. They're not really seasons. When you get done with 25 shows, you say, well, that's a season.
Right. And it's Stand Up Memories, and where can people see it?
It's Stand Up Memories, and it's standupmemories.com.
Okay.
And then it has all the connections to the YouTubes and I still don't follow the Google Plus, Googleplex, all that horse crap. But it's all at standupmemories.com, and you can put the hyphen in stand up, but I don't think you actually need it. Just standupmemories.com, and it'll connect you to everything and all the shows from. I think there's about 90 shows, and they're fun.
We had a great time when we were there. Well,
they're goofy. They're not laugh a minute. They're just conversations.
Well,
and I insult him. That's my job.
Our clock is blinking. The next show has to start. But Jackie, thank you so much for being on Gilded Into It.
I'm reading this book tonight.
This one?
I appreciate it.
I want you to text me and tell me which was your favorite.
I will.
All right.
Thank you, you guys.
Thank you, everybody. See you next week. Have a great night. Stay tuned for Laughter Saves Lives live.